Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh and a very good morning. Dr. Saidatul dah ada kan? Tak.
Dah.
Baik. Selamat pagi. Hari ini kita akan masuk kepada unit 2 bagi modul 1 Good Practices bagi untuk PSS at USM. Jadi sebelum kita bermula, saya perkenalkan sedikit. Prof. Madia Dr. Saidatul telah bersama dengan Institusi Sains Malaysia sejak 2005 lagi dan beliau daripada Pusat Pengajian Sains Kemasyarakatan. Kajian beliau utamanya adalah berkenaan welfare economic, menumpukan kepada warga emas dan social protection. Beliau juga turut mempunyai interest terhadap kajian berkenaan dengan development economics, tourism and heritage economics serta public finance. Beliau telah melakukan consultation kepada banyak organisasi termasuklah OECD Korea Policy Center, United Nations Research Institute of Social Development, Open Budget Partnership, Penang State Government and Economic Planning Unit. Tajuk pada hari ini adalah Overview of the Recruitment and Policy of Postgraduate Supervision. Tanpa melengahkan masa, saya persilakan Prof. Madia Dr. Saidatul Muhammad. Saidatul Akmal Muhammad.
Assalamualaikum. Thank you so much for that kind introduction. Assalamualaikum and a very good morning everyone. Seperti yang dimaklumkan oleh pengerusi majlis sebentar tadi, today we are going to talk on one particular topic, which is overview of the recruitment and policy of postgraduate students. But before we begin, can I have just an indicator how many of those attending this session today are non-Malay speaker? basically a foreigner, so that I would know if I can use a lot of Bahasa Melayu or not. Can I just have maybe some hands up on the icon to just see who is a foreigner? All right. Okay, thank you so much. Okay, I'll try my best to speak in English so that you won't be left out in the discussion. Okay, let's begin. The objectives of today's session, there are two main objectives. One is basically to understand universities' recruitment and selection process of postgraduate research student milestones and regulations. And number two is to understand universities' expectations for postgraduate research supervisions. So these are two broad objectives that will be covered in today's webinar series. For these two objectives, we will also have two main topics. So the first topic would be what are the rules and regulation of postgraduate study. And number two, what are the university's expectation for postgraduate research supervision. And of course, at the end of the session, we will be doing some activity. When this module was first designed, it was designed for 1 hour lecture and 1 hour activity. And the activity, we will be doing it through ePortfolio Mahara. So we'll see, we will try our best to try to confine to the original module and making sure that we are able to at least cover topic 1 and topic 2 within the 1 hour period. And then you can spend the additional 1 hour for the activity. Reason being because we do not want you to spend a lot of time offline to do these activities and to spend a lot of time doing homework for this particular topic. And this is going to be a very so-called dull webinar because we are dealing a lot with rules and regulations. So bear with me, everyone. It's going to be a quite heavy 1 hour discussion, 1 hour sharing session. But I'm sure most of you have already known some of the topics and some of the rules and regulations for postgraduate studies. So, if some of you already know about it, so this is going to just be a refreshing session for all of you. For the new academic staff, perhaps this is going to be some new information. This Whatever it is, I'm sure it's going to be some value added to everyone after you have attended and finished today's session. So as a start, what I would like to do is to have a quick survey through Slido. So there will be just to get some idea about your status and your experience with regard to supervision or supervising postgraduate students. We are going to use Slido. So if any of you are not familiar with the use of Slido, so you can see at the bottom or at the top of your screen, there is this button. You can see like a small square plus, this is the apps button. So if you press the apps button, you will see Slido, polling and Q&A in WebEx. So that would be the Slido. So if you click there, that will take you to Slido. So I'm going to do that. So the first Slido would be how many of you are currently supervising postgraduate students. So you can just, provide your votes. Thank you so much. Or if you are, if you have graduated, some postgraduate students. So here we can see that, thank you so much everyone for voting. I can notice that the majority of you are currently supervising postgraduate students, let it be coursework, mixed mode, or research. and only a small percentage have not yet supervising postgraduate students, either from coursework, mixed mode, or research. Okay, excellent. So this actually, if you are currently supervising postgraduate students, I'm sure that all of you are somehow aware about the rules and regulations.
If they do slotted, how do they do this?
Okay. All right, excellent. Thank you so much for that particular vote. So now I at least have some idea about the participants of today's session. Another question that I would like to ask is basically, how do you recruit postgraduate students? So there is another Slido. So if you can just write down, how do you recruit your postgraduate students? Either you don't do anything and they just approach you, or you use the assistance by RCMO to identify postgraduate students, or you make your own advertisement at Facebook or any other social media. So what do you do? A lot of them are assigned by school. Excellent. I think that is what we normally do, especially if it is coursework as well as mixed mode. Excellent. Social media has always been a very good approach to basically recruit and identify potential postgraduate students. So I see social media, IG, I think I saw just now Facebook, yeah, Facebook, advertisement, also from IPS, okay, excellent. And most of them is assigned by school. From FYP students, that is also an excellent way of recruiting postgraduate student, and that has always been an approach that has been advocated by the university as well. So basically, we take our final year undergraduate and we groom them and we inform them the kind of postgraduate programs that we have at our school, and then we recruit them either as our graduate students or perhaps as our research officer at the very beginning. So that is definitely a good approach from the to ensure continuity, to ensure continuity from undergraduate to the postgraduate studies. That's just excellent. Well done. So keep the comments coming for the recruitment of postgraduate students. This can also be a good information for the university to know how our academics actually recruit the postgraduate students. Thank you so much, everyone, for the excellent input for the quick survey for today's webinar. All right. So now let's get to business. So when you talk about policies, there are so many policies available here in USM. As you know, not only about postgraduate, but for any other policies, rules, and regulation pertaining to our existence here at the university. So there are so many policies, there are so many rules and regulations. What are the important ones that we need to know? So what are the things that we have to make sure that we are aware of? As because there are so many policies, I'm not going to cover everything. It is just impossible to cover everything. So what I will be doing for this particular session is to just focus on three things. Three important rules and regulations, or three important policies that are pertinent to postgraduate studies. So number one would be the appointment of supervisors. what are the do's and the don'ts when you want to appoint supervisor. Although some of you are already supervisors, but it's good to know whether we are on the right track or not, and also some fresh information for those who have not or have yet to supervise postgraduate students. So for the appointment of supervisor, we are using the latest Senate Minute of 355, Senate 275 that was conducted on the 26th of May 2022. This is the latest Senate ruling with regard to the appointment of supervisor, either by masters, coursework, mixed mode, as well as research, as well as for PhD program. And then we will look at the general student admission. So for the general student admission, we follow what has been prescribed by the universities, and most of this information is available on the IPS website. So if you need to know more information about general student admission, you can go through IPS website. And finally, once you have the supervisor, once you have the student admitted, once the process of supervision has begun or has started, the only thing to do is submission and then ensure that the student graduate. So the third policies or the third focus of today's webinar is on graduation. So road to graduations, what are needed and what are required. Okay, let's begin with the first one. The first one is basically appointment of supervisors. So when we talk about appointment of supervisor, we are going to look at three elements: research, mixed modes, as well as coursework for both masters as well as PhD. So we will begin with our master's program first. What are the criteria to become a supervisor for master's program? Okay, sorry. Okay, based on the guidelines from MQA, the second edition of 2021, regardless whether it is for masters by research, masters by mixed mode, or masters by coursework, it is stated that the main supervisor has to have a doctoral degree. So you need to have PhD or any form of doctoral degree to be able to qualify as the main supervisor for masters. However, there are conditions and there are situations whereby the main supervisor does not have a doctoral degree and only has a master's degree. So does that mean that that particular person cannot supervise a master's students? So MQA says, yes, you can supervise a master's students, but there are certain criteria that are included in that particular supervision process. And number one is that particular academic staff must have at least 5 years experience in teaching and research. And, you see the word and, had successfully been a co-supervisor. So if the person who only has a master's degree had been a co-supervisor before and already had 5 years experience in teaching and research, then the person is qualified to supervise a master's candidate as a main supervisor. However, for professional program, it is also the same, 5 years experience plus co-supervisor, specifically for Masters of Medicine as well as Masters of Pathology for coursework. This experience, the 5 years experience, is also inclusive of the 4 years of professional training. So the 4 years of professional training is included in the 5 years experience of teaching as well as research. And for this particular program, the appointment of co-supervisor can be made as early as 6 months after appointment as academic staff. So it's a bit different for this particular track of Masters of Medicine as well as Masters of Pathology. So this is the main criteria. And the second criteria for supervision is this one. Supervisor has to attend a structured supervision training program. And this is why most of you here are here today, attending this particular program. This particular program is part of the structured supervision training program. So according to MQA, the minimum hours required for this particular program is 14 hours. And of course, it is compulsory to all new appointed academic staff, but those who have graduated postgraduate student as main supervisor are exempted from attending this particular course. However, all academic staff is encouraged to join. So if you, and I see just now, at least 70% are already supervising, or at least, supervising postgraduate students. But so perhaps, if you have graduated a postgraduate student as main supervisor, this course is not compulsory for you. But you are encouraged to join to just enhance your knowledge, because sometimes, the rules and regulations change, and we have some updated rules and regulations over the time. So this is a compulsory of 14 hours. That is why if you look at what CDAE has prepared for this particular first module, we have 3 units. You have attended Prof. Takziah's lecture last week. So mine is this week. And next week is another one by Prof. Azman Sini. When you talk about master's program as well, the one or supervisor who is qualified to supervise as main supervisor should be appointed among academics who is not currently a full-time postgraduate student in any university, either in USM or any universities in local or any other universities abroad. So it has to be a full-time academics without any study leave option for that particular academics. Especially those who are doing part-time. So academics currently pursuing part-time postgraduate study cannot be burdened with supervision tasks. So if you are doing your studies part-time, you are not obliged to basically do any supervision tasks. However, I'm sure there are some of you who are doing part-time postgraduate studies, but would also want to supervise some master students. You are allowed to do that, given that you have a discussion with your dean and the dean is agreeable to the workload and is happy with the progress of your study, as well as the balance that you need to do between your study as well as supervision. And this one, I think we have heard this one as well in the past. When even currently now, we have quite a number of USM retired academic staff who have been absorbed into the school center as honorary lecturer or honorary professor. So these people who are not part of any payable employment scheme, either full paid or flexi, if they are not being paid, they are not allowed to be main supervisor. They can only be co-supervisor. So this is an additional criteria that was set by Senate with regard to retired academic staff who are on flexi scheme as honorary lecturer. So that is main supervisor. So what about co-supervisor? So there's not much difference with regard to the criteria for supervision at master's level for co-supervisor, except for slight reduction in the number of years of experience. So if you look at MQA second edition 2021 requirement for research and mixed mode, the rule for main supervisor applies for co-supervisor. So we see here it says co-supervisor has to have a doctoral degree to be eligible as a co-supervisor for master's candidate. However, if let's say the co-supervisor only has a master's degree for research and mixed mode instead of 5 years, so if you want to be main supervisor, it's 5 years, but if you want to be co-supervisor, it's sufficient to only have 1 year experience in teaching and research. And I know that we now with this stronger attachment or basically greater emphasis on having experience with the industry as well as community. So we sometimes have what we call as field supervisor. And field supervisor can come from industry or basically community. So with regard to co-supervisor from industry, MQA states that co-supervisor from industry should have at least a bachelor's degree. So not necessarily they have a PhD as what is imposed for our academics. So nevertheless, in addition to just having a bachelor's degree, that particular individual must have at least 5 years of experience in a suitable areas that matches the area the candidate is working on. So you have to make sure that it is apple to apple and orange to orange, not a totally different area from what the candidate is working on. So supervision from industry as well as community is encouraged, and we do not need them to have a doctoral degree, just a bachelor's degree with some numbers of years of experience. The high number of experience allows a better supervision from the field supervisor, especially if the candidate is attached to the industry or to the community. And of course, when you talk about co-supervisor as well, you still have to undergo the structured supervision training program. So whether you want to be main supervisor for master's program or you want to be co-supervisors for master's program, you still have to attend this structured supervision training program conducted by CDAE. So we are done with the criteria for masters, both for main supervisor as well as co-supervisor. Now we move on to PhD. And I think this is more significant because a lot of schools I know are having more intake for PhDs rather than masters. So let's look at what are the criteria set by MQA 2021 as well as what has been agreed by the Senate with regard to appointment as a PhD supervisor. So let's begin with main supervisor first. So for main supervisor, by research as well as mixed mode, main supervisor must have a doctoral degree. So this is the same, as what was the criteria set for MQA for master's program. So you have to have a doctoral degree. But on top of that, in addition to having a doctoral degree, that particular person must also have at least 2 years experience in teaching and research and has successfully supervised masters or PhD students, either as co-supervisor or main supervisor. So these are the two additional criteria set by MQA when we want to elect or we want to select an academic staff who would be able to supervise a doctoral candidate. I know some of you might say that, well, when I came back from my PhD, when I joined the school, when I joined the universities, I straightly was asked to supervise PhD students. Or, the candidate, there's no other, basically there's no other academic staff who would want to supervise and I have to supervise. So what had happened in the past had happened, so don't worry about it. But moving forward, these are the things that we need to adhere to. So that is why it's important for us to join training programs to ensure that we are up to date with all the rules and regulations. If let's say the academic staff does not have a doctoral degree but only have a master's degree, would that particular academic staff be allowed to supervise a doctoral candidate? The answer is yes. So first, this particular individual must satisfy A and B. So whether you have a PhD or whether you have only a master's degree, you still have to make sure that you have at least 2 years experience in teaching and research and have successfully supervised master's or PhD students. And another one is you have to have approval on their appointment at Mesyuarat Majlis PTJ. So the new standard ruling says that the approval is just at the majlis level. So the majlis would have to decide whether the academic staff with the master's degree is suitable or is qualified to supervise this PhD candidate as the main supervisor.
Good morning, Dr. Saidatul Akmal.
Yes.
Yes, good morning. Can I have a confirmation that master students is only master by research or masters by mixed mods too? Because it seems that from my understanding, when it says master student, it is masters by research. It's like mixed mod is not counted as master students.
Together, so you see here, it's research, mixed mode, and coursework.
No, I mean the master on the master's level. Do you actually define master student as mixed mod as well as research?
Yes. So
Okay, because the situation with me is that I've graduated a few masters by mixed mods students, and yet I was identified as not graduating any students.
oh,
Yeah, so it's so my impression is that master by research tak dikira lah.
masters meaning that for this one lah kan, so at the one that says you need to graduate
Yeah,
postgraduate student as main supervisor.
yes. So I did some with mixed mod students. So apparently I'm still identified as belum graduate kan sebarang pelajar lah kan. So
Right.
impression is that mixed mod tu tak dikira. So is
Dr.
that
Chai,
true?
how many
Sorry?
students have you graduated for mixed mode?
Mixed mod too.
2.
Two students.
Okay.
Sorry, doctor. I just I got the confirmation from Dr. Tay, Associate Professor Dr. Tay. He mentioned that if you have
Ya, Dr. Diana. Dr. Diana?
22, then you have to join this session. I mean, your case is similar like mine.
Dr. Diana, you were cut just now. Can you repeat your statement just now because you were
Okay.
cut somehow?
Okay, if I'm not if I understand the question just now correctly, so the doctor asking why he is not recognized as the main supervisor, right?
Yes.
Okay, if he has graduated the students before or in July 2022, meaning that the students' name have been listed in the Senate meeting before or in July 2022, then he is considered as, has graduated students as main supervisor. But if the student has been listed in the Senate list after July 2022, then although you have graduated the students as the main supervisor, but you still have to attend this course.
Okay. Thank you so much, Dr. Diana,
Mm.
for that clarification.
Okay, in my case, actually, I graduated the students some time ago, about 4 or 5 years ago. So
Then
it's-
doktor kena check dengan IPS because
Yeah.
Yeah, I was about to
Yeah.
say that as well, Dr. Diana. Dr. Chai, I don't know, is there IPS representative presence today? Secretariat ada ke IPS hari ni?
Dr. Sedatul, as far as I'm concerned,
Prof.
the
Hasri,
case like Dr. Shah, the requirement for to become a main supervisor for masters or PhD research student, the academic need to graduate first. You need to have a graduate student first in the research mode. It's not be counted for for supervision for the mixed mode and coursework project. It's not be counted.
Okay. There is my question, Dr. Hasri.
Yeah,
Exactly
yeah.
my question. So mixed mode ni, the value is less lah compared to research mode.
Yeah, value is less, sure. I'm not saying about the value, it's also the experience of supervision, but it's not being counted for to be a requirement for to be appointed for a main supervisor you need to be graded as at least as a co-supervisor for a research mode student.
Okay, because whether we like it or not, mixed mode student do exist in our system.
I agree that. I agree that. Yeah,
My
because
concern is that, due to strategic decision, mixed mode student might be sidelined by the supervisors in the future. I mean, see, Dr. Saidatu is smiling there. You get what I mean. I'm not sure. I mean, I'm not complaining here. I mean, the cost to attend this course is perfectly fine for me, but I'm just saying that if the system do not recognize mixed mode students as graduate students in certain criteria, then strategically, some of us might try to avoid that. But so the rest of us will have to take it up because mixed mode exists in the system to begin with.
I agree that. Yeah, I agree that. Because it's also
Okay. I already got your
supervision
confirmation
experience,
there as well.
but the difference
Yeah,
is mixed mode and coursework is more structured compared to research mode student. But
yes,
but
agree.
also contribute to to the points. The point for your promotion and as well. But for
Exactly, that's my point because if mixed mode is not recognized, as I said, some of us would strategically
yeah,
avoid mixed mode students, so the rest of us will have to take them out because they are still in the systems, right?
the issue is here is not recognized to be a main supervisor for research student, but it's not to say that it's not recognized as your academic contribution. For instance,
Because
for your
obviously in this
promotion.
case, obviously in this case it is not because that's why I was called for this to attend this course. You see?
Yeah.
But again, I'm not complaining. I'm just wanted to have the
Yeah, agree.
confirmation that the definition of graduating postgrad do not include masters by mixed mode. So I'm okay with that. I just want to know the definition, whether the universities define it differently than what I understand, So it's okay. So now I've got the confirmation. Thank you to Dr. Saidatu and also Dr. Hasri. Also,
Thanks.
Diana, thank you very much. Yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Chai. Thank you, Prof. Hasri, for the explanation. Okay, so let's move on. You were just now PhD. Okay. Similarly as well, so basically in general, all academic staff who wants to become a supervisor either at master's or PhD level have to join this structured supervision training program. So that just now was the criteria for main supervisor for PhD students. Now we go for criteria for supervision of PhD as co-supervisor. So for co-supervisor, for research, there are quite different criteria for research and mixed mode. For research, the co-supervisor has a doctoral degree. Mixed mode, in addition to having a doctoral degree, that particular academic staff must also have at least 2 years experience in teaching and research. If, for example, the co-supervisor does not have a doctoral degree, if we look at the main supervisor just now, it has to fulfill A and B, and approval is only at Mesyuarat Majlis. But for a co-supervisor, the person has to have a vast research experience and needs approval in Senate. And if there is a need to appoint co-supervisor from industry, the co-supervisor must have at least a bachelor's degree and 10 years experience in the prescribed area of research that is done by the student that the supervisor is going to supervise. It's very different from master's level. For master's level, supervisor from industry only need 5 years experience, but for PhD, the supervisor needs to have 10 years of experience. And again, if you want to be a co-supervisor as well, you have to attend this structured supervision training program. So what can be concluded is the main criteria for either master's or PhD program. First, you have to have a doctoral degree. So once you have a doctoral degree, you basically satisfy the main criteria or the main requirement to become main supervisor at master's as well as PhD level. Of course, with PhD levels, you have the additional years of experience and whatnot. And another one is to attend this structured supervision training program. So minimum of 14 hours. So that wraps up our first topic, which is the supervision, or basically the appointment of supervisors. Now we go to the general student admission. As what I've mentioned to all of you, most of this information on general student admission can be obtained from IPS website. So there are a lot of admission requirements that are already in IPS website. So if you have new students coming in, the best way is to guide them and ask them to go through IPS website first. I found the information in IPS website to be very enriching and a lot of information. Nevertheless, we as supervisor must also know some of the general requirements. So here, what I am going to share with all of you are the general requirements, language requirements, as well as the PhD fast track. Because quite a number of us also are unsure that there is this admission process called PhD fast track. So let's go to a general requirement first. So what I've done is I have basically cut and paste the information from IPS website. So this is the general admission requirements. So this is the general one that is set by the university. Of course, every programs would have a specific requirement. So on top of this general admission requirement, you or your school, your specific programs can have additional admission requirement for you to ensure that the candidate coming into your school or candidate coming into your program has the qualification and the experience that is needed. But this is the general one. Now let's go through masters first. So for masters, of course, the basic criteria or basic qualification is a bachelor degree. So in order for you to proceed to masters, you need to have a bachelor degree. So a minimum of 2.75 of CGPA is required. So basically, if the candidate has 2.75, it's a straightforward case. You know, that is already fulfilling the qualification to pursue a master's degree at USM. Or if, let's say, the candidate does not have 2.75, if the candidate has 2.5 to 2.74, the candidate would need to fulfill either one of these following criteria. Either at least 1 year research experience, at least 1 year professional experience, at least one academic publication in related field, grade B for major elective courses, or grade B plus for final year project. So if, let's say, for example, I'm from economics, if there is a candidate with CGPA of 2.6 wanting to join Masters of Economic Management, we will then look at what are the grades that the candidate has received for economics courses at the undergraduate level. So taking all the economics courses at the undergraduate level, the grade should be a minimum of B for the candidate to be qualified to join the Masters of Economic Management program. If let's say, USM is very kind to different type of backgrounds for candidates wanting to pursue higher education at the universities. So if the candidate doesn't have CGPA of 2.5 to 2.74 and only have 2 to 2.49, there are lists of degrees that the candidate can check. You just go to IPS website. Same criteria of what was required under CGPA of 2.5 to 2.74. The only difference is the number of years. For example, research experience is 5 years instead of 1. Professional experience is also 5 years instead of 1. And instead of all, what we have done here at the university is N. So either research experience or professional experience of 5 years and 1 academic publications or a B grade for major courses or B plus for final year project. So it's not that we are turning down those with lower CGPA. We are basically considering them to enter and join our university community, but with a more additional requirement. So if you don't have a bachelor degree, you have an APPLE A certificate. Of course, you can refer to MQA websites. For any inquiries not listed here, we can always refer to IPS. So that is for master's program. So minimum is 2.75. I know some programs set a CGPA of higher than 2.75. So that is the specific one set by the PTJs or certain programs. For example, like Masters of Economic Management, our minimum CGPA is 3.0. So once the students come in, if it's lesser than 3.0, we will look at it, review the application and see all the other criteria, and then only we will make decision on whether to accept or to reject that particular candidate. So that's Masters. So what about PhD? So PhD, of course, if you want to do Masters, you have to have a bachelor's degree. So for PhDs, if you want to do a PhD, you have to have at least a master's degree. So master's degrees, it does not matter whether it's by coursework or by mixed mode, as long as it's a master's degree. And CGPA is slightly higher for PhD. Instead of 2.75, the CGPA for master's degree is at least 3.0. However, again, as I mentioned to you just now, we are open to to a variety of academic backgrounds. So if let's say you have a CGPA of less than 3, between 2.5 to 2.99, if you qualify or if the candidate qualifies certain criteria, that person is allowed to join as a PhD candidate. So the criteria is also almost the same. So you can see research experience, but now instead of 1, it becomes 2 years. Professional experience, 2 years. 2 academic publications as opposed to only 1 for master's program. Same grades for major or elective courses of B+, as well as B+ for coursework mode or pass for mixed mode dissertation project. So if bachelor's degree, we are looking at the final year project. For PhD, we are looking for the mixed mode dissertation or the coursework mode, because I know for certain master's coursework, you also have a project paper at the end of the semester. And of course, if you have master's degree by research mode, there is no CGPA for that particular program. That is also considered to be qualified to enter our PhD program. But of course, for this research mode program, you need to refer to IPS for confirmation, because they have a list of programs, a list of research programs that are equivalent of master's degree for entry to our PhD program. So that is the general admission requirements. Of course, this is just basic. If you say that, we want to put CGPA of 3.9, it's up to you. But of course, the program needs to have a greater justification and need to justify why you have a different admission requirement. And I'm sure because, now we are all talking about quality, so it is good to also contain this quality and ensure that we will receive good graduate students. Next is general language requirements. This is always an issue to many PTJs, many schools. Although you have these minimum scores, we see that there are also some students who come in without good English language requirement. So the university's stand is if the candidate fulfills either one of these minimum score, so the person is basically eligible or qualified to enter our postgraduate studies. So basically, if you cannot, or we as an academic staff cannot deny a student if the student has achieved a minimum score of this language requirement. If let's say you feel that, or we feel that the language is inadequate and we want the student to have more exposure on language, so in the offer letter, I believe that we can also add in additional requirements. So on top of that, students, on top of registering for all these courses, the students need to also attend language course at our language center. So that is allowed. So you give a conditional offer to the candidate. So long as the minimum score is fulfilled, the university stand is this candidate is somehow qualified to attend this particular course, or basically the postgraduate courses. However, the general language requirements is exempted. There are a few exemptions. So number one is if English is the candidate's mother tongue or national language. So those who's from United States of America, who speaks English as their mother tongue, they are exempted from this general language requirements. As well as if candidate graduated from an institution of higher learning in which the medium of instruction at the bachelor and or master's degree level is English. So if let's say it's a foreigner but had been studying in the US or in the UK at the bachelor degree as well as master's level, so when they want to come in and join at the PhD level, they can be exempted from the language requirement, but the candidate would need to provide some proof of statement saying that yes, we have done this, our studies have all been in English.
Dr. Saidatul,
Yeah.
sorry nak tanya. Okay, let's say because you've shown us this, meaning to say like, if the candidate has fulfilled one of these requirement, then he or she is eligible to apply. But then katakanlah we want to interview them, right? At some PTJs they won't they don't see interview as very encouraging, because this is basically taking will make the student or the candidate afraid to apply to the school. But let's say kita buat our informal interview, and even though the students have fulfill one of these, but during the interview we observe that the student, they cannot communicate, so can we just reject them?
Okay. From what I know, Dr. Diana, the basis of rejection cannot be on the language if the candidate fulfill this minimum score. So what you can do is you can do conditional offering, meaning that before fully accepting the candidate into your program, you can ask the candidate to attend English course. So the first year is not directly into your program, but attending the English course, because this is the minimum score that we have that the university has set.
Okay, can
If let's say you want to reject, then there must be a greater justification to rejection.
because this case happened in my school, that we actually have students who forge the certificate. And let's say that if we want them to have this additional cost, can they take it here so that we know that they are basically going through that process by themselves, not
Yes.
actually asking other people to go and take the exam on their behalf?
Yeah, good point, Dr. Diana. This is what we have done as well in our school. So when we are a bit doubtful about the candidates' progress or the candidates' English proficiency, so we gave a conditional offer, but the student needs to come to USM to take the English course and to pass the English course here at USM. So you can put that as a conditional, as a condition prior to accepting the student into the program.
All right, thank you.
Welcome.
Dr. Sadatu, if I can add something regarding this issue, I think this
Prof.
is quite common phenomenon in various schools as well regarding especially the international student that are really not competent in the English in language. While they have shown and it's evidence that they got a good band for the English and fulfill the requirement to enroll the program, but the so-called the lambatkan students sekarang ni, I think supervisor, I'm personally look that supervisor also have your prerogative to determine whether you I mean you can provide justification whether you can accept or you want to reject that student. This you have to I mean explain to the majlis, to the board meeting, why you don't want to accept that student with a strong reason and justification. Otherwise, we also looking forward to have a talented student rather just have a high numbers of student with and not be able to get the talent student is also an issue. So I think this is common thing. Experience in my school that we also allow our lecturer to do an interview with student before the lecturer decide to accept or not. I mean, but when you want to reject the student, we cannot give the reason they are not qualified based on their, I mean, their or the requirement that have been fulfilled. You need to, I mean, provide other reason, not that particular reason of the requirement, maybe of the area of their study. Are you not able to supervise because you have many students and so on. That's my views on it. And okay, thanks.
Thank you, Prof. Azri. Yes, true indeed. So the rejection of the student, as I mentioned just now to Dr. Diana, must be a bit more concrete lah. Justification, there must be a strong justification, but cannot be based on this general language requirements if they have fulfilled it. Thank you so much, Prof. Azri, for that clarification. Okay, next, under the admission, we have another one called PhD Fast Track. So we in USM we have this PhD Fast Track that allows students from bachelor's degree to jump one level, do not have to do masters, but can directly go to pursue their studies at the PhD level. So this is called PhD Fast Track. But this is not for everyone. This is for candidates who have been very excellent at their undergraduate level with a minimum CGPA of 3.67 out of 4 cumulative point average. In addition to having an excellent CGPA, the candidate must also pass an interview that will be set by the school or by the program itself. So the school or the program would need to set a committee so that they are able to interview the candidate and then assess whether the candidate is already ready or the candidate has all the criteria and all the necessary experience to conduct research studies at the PhD level without going through masters first. And other requirements are basically what are the other requirements in addition to the general requirements set by the university that is specific and pertinent to any program. So this is for the candidate.
Dr. Sadatu,
Yeah, Dr. Zul?
yeah, for PhD fast track, is there any minimum duration that they are allowed to apply for? For example, just after they finish their study upon graduation, or 5 years later, they can still apply for these fast tracks.
Thank you so much, Dr. Zul. There is no clear, from what I know, there is no information on that. It's just say that the applicants need to have a minimum CGPA of 3.67 out of 4. So
Okay, thank you.
there's no experience included in this particular track.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So in addition to the requirements set for the candidate, for the supervisor must have graduated at least one PhD student. So if let's say a student come to you and wants to apply for this PhD fast track, advise the candidate about the requirements. Minimum is GPA 3.67. And if you want to become the supervisor, you must at least have graduated one PhD student. So this is the criteria for PhD fast track. But I know not many schools are doing this, and if the candidate have high CGPA, sometimes the candidate did not pass the interview because doing a PhD requires certain level of maturity, and sometimes students from bachelor's degree just do not possess that kind of maturity that we require to admit them directly to the PhD fast track. Okay, oh, we're good on time. Okay, a few more slides to go. Now we are done with the admission. So these are the information about admission that all of you required to know. The next one is on graduation. So for graduation, what I want to focus is mostly on research mode and mixed mode program, because for coursework, it's rather straightforward. You attend classes and you take the exams, you submit your final project, and you will be able to graduate. But things are slightly different whether it is research mode or mixed mode program. So we are going to look at two major things here. Number one is the graduation requirement, and number two is the notice of thesis submission that will later lead to Viva Voce examination, and then student passing the Viva and can then graduate. Okay, let's look at the general graduation requirement. And I think all of you are aware about this. These are the number one graduation requirement set by the university by masters as PhD and PhD students is basically publication. So this is the main graduation requirement. It's either you have it or you don't. If you don't, you cannot graduate. So you ask your student, do you have paper? If you don't have paper, don't think about graduation first. So under publication, there are a few issues that need to be raised here. Number one is authorship. This is very important because a lot of students actually publish papers, but they don't publish with their supervisor. So the papers to be counted for graduation requirement must be papers that are published with supervisor. And another important thing is please make sure that the candidate is the first author. Supervisor can be second, third, fourth, fifth authors, and supervisor can be the corresponding author, or the student candidate can be first as well as corresponding author. What matters is the candidate must be first author for that particular paper. So authorship is very important. Number two is, this is common, you talk about plagiarism. So plagiarized article will not be accepted for graduation requirement. So if there is an issue of plagiarism, that will be denied as a graduation requirement. Third is publication topic. This is also very important. The topic that the student published must be related to thesis. So there are few cases whereby students claim that they have published, but the publication was not accepted as part of the graduation requirement. Why? Because the topic is totally different from the topic of the thesis. So supervisors, please make sure that the papers submitted for graduation requirement are topics related to the student's thesis. It should be similar rather than, it cannot be a totally different topic. Because I know some of the PhD students, at least for my cases, for my students, they are also a lecturer at their university back home. So sometimes, they write papers with their colleagues back home and we contribute part of the content. But of course, that paper may not be directly related to the thesis. So when the students come to me with this kind of papers, I will tell them, okay, you can do this paper, but please be reminded that this is not counted towards your graduation requirement because it's a totally different topic. So to save time, just advise the students to publish something on the thesis area. And then another one is affiliation. So please remember this is for everyone, not only for the students, but for us as supervisor. Please make sure that the affiliation is correct. Writing the wrong name for the university can also be a hindrance to graduation. So, I know if you look at some papers that are available online, the affiliation of the University of Science Malaysia has so many different funny names. So please make sure that it is spelled correctly. University, TI, Science, SAINS, and Malaysia. Because sometimes it's TY, Science is SCIENCE. So different sorts of names for University Science Malaysia. So wrong affiliation can also be a problem to fulfill the graduation requirement. And of course, the journal must not be blacklisted journal. So please, supervisors, please kindly check the papers or the journals that your students want to submit, because sometimes they will just submit because they know that it is compulsory for them to have papers, so they'll just send to any journals that will provide them easy and fast publication. But if let's say the journal is blacklisted, then it will not be counted for graduation. So please check with IPS on the list of journals that are not blacklisted, as well as the journals that are allowed for the graduation requirement. Because it would be a very sad story. It's very frustrating when the students have passed all the processes, passed the Viva Voce, submitted all the amendments and correction, and then finally is not able to graduate because the journals is considered as blacklisted journals. So this is very important for us to double check. Now let's look at the details of the publication requirement. So here, let's look at Masters by Research as well as PhD by Research. So we have two big clusters. One is Sciences, Engineering, Health and Medical, and the other one is Arts. For Masters by Research, at least one journal article accepted or published. So it cannot be submitted. Submitted is not counted. So it's accepted or published in journals or proceedings indexed by WOS or Scopus. So this is for Masters. PhD is even tougher for Sciences, Engineering, Health and Medical. So one journal article accepted or published in journal indexed by WOS, Web of Science, in Q1 or Q2. But I know, sometimes it can be not sometimes. Most of the times, it's very challenging to publish in Q1 or Q2 journal. So if this is not fulfilled, at least two journal articles accepted or published in journal indexed by Web of Science or Scopus. So this is for Sciences. For Arts, for Masters, at least one journal articles accepted or published. Same thing. It must be accepted or published, cannot just be submitted. So there are a bit more variety for arts. So number one is journals or proceeding index in WOS or Scopus or ERA. So there's ERA there. Or journals by the university or listed in My Journal or Malaysian Journal Management System from My Site, Malaysian Citation Center. Or book chapters published by publishers listed in the Thomson Reuters Web of Science Master Book List or Penerbit USM or MAPIM. So a bit more variety for arts for master students. Same thing, a bit more a variety for arts for PhD research. So one journal article accepted or published in journal indexed by WOS, Scopus or ERA, or at least two journal articles in journals listed by the university in My Journal or from My Site, as well as book chapters from renowned publishers, Thomson Reuters, WOS Master Book List, or Penerbit USM or MAPIM. So these are the criteria. And I know some students have more than just one journal, so that is good. I know some of my students have at least 2 journals in WOS or Scopus. So that is just excellent. So what they need usually is just for arts, at least for economics, is 1 journal articles, but usually as supervisors, we can just push the students to publish more if we think that they are ready and they have the skills and the experience for publication. There's also another program, doctoral program, mixed mode, and there are few programs or there are few schools offering a doctoral program by mixed mode. For example, you have here School of Dental Sciences, Doctor of Dental Public Health. For the School of Medical Sciences, you have Doctor of Public Health, Health System Management, Family Health, Environmental Health and Occupational Epidemiology, as well as Doctor of Neuroscience. For doctoral program mixed mode, the publication requirement is at least 1 journal article accepted or published in journal indexed by Web of Science, Scopus, as well as PubMed. For other clusters, for example, like Graduate School of Business, they offer DBA, Doctor of Business Administration. For example, for DBA, it's just 1 article. It's just sufficient to maybe publish the article in proceedings. But for other programs, please check with the individual program requirement, what are the paper requirement or article requirement for graduation. So this is the graduation requirements in terms of publication. Other requirements for research mode that we as supervisors also need to know. This is very important because sometimes what happened, it happened in my school once upon a time in the past, where the candidate was not allowed to graduate because the candidate did not attend research methodology course at one point in time. But now the research methodology course is a bit more structured, because Senate has made it more structured courses for research methodology course. So when the student come in first year, supervisors, please tell them to attend research methodology course, and they have to pass this research method course as a requirement for graduation. On top of that, they have to fulfill the minimum duration of candidature. They must pass any PTJ's prerequisite course. If let's say in the offer letter you have stated, a conditional offer, you have to sit for this postgraduate programs, in these courses, that courses. So make sure that the candidates have fulfilled all the prerequisite courses, as well as making sure that they have all registered and passed at least grade C for LKM 11. Maybe it's the wrong code. Malaysian Culture and Malay Language course. Yeah. So this is the requirements for research mode. For mixed mode, other requirements in addition to the publication is, of course, pass all the courses under the mixed mode program or any prerequisite courses. Similarly, pass the dissertation or research project, because usually mixed mode also have dissertation. Obtain minimum of grade C for the language course. Obtain at least CGPA of 3.0. So this is very important. So if you are supervising a mixed mode candidate, make sure that their final CGPA is at least 3.0. Otherwise, they will not be allowed to graduate. Fulfill minimum duration of candidature. For Master of Medicine, Pathology, as well as Surgery, they must also pass professional examination and, of course, fulfill the publication requirements, if any. So check again what is the publication requirements for the mixed mode program. I know some mixed mode program does not have publication requirements, so it depends on what was first justified in that particular program. This is another important information that we as supervisors need to know. When you talk about minimum candidature, what is minimum candidature? When we are so eager for GOT, graduate on time, we forgot that the students must also meet this minimum candidature. Okay, for example, for masters, full-time, 1 year from date of registration, part-time, 2 years from date of registration. For PhD, 2 years from date of registration, and part-time 3 years from date of registration. So it's only after, for example, for PhD, for full-time, It's only after the 2 years from date of registration that you are allowed to submit your notice of thesis submission. Otherwise, you cannot just submit. Because I remember I have a student, he was very hardworking student, and before the end of 2 years, he already finished most of his work. So I said, go back home first, enjoy your time, come back, and then once your minimum candidature has, you have reached your minimum candidature, then you can submit your notice of thesis submission. So when can you submit notice of thesis submission? This we must also know. Supervisors must also know this. So you have to plan well in advance. So once you see, because I'm sure that we as supervisor, we have been monitoring the candidate's progress. So when we feel that the candidate has reached a level that the thesis is somehow ready for submission, so it's not that when the thesis is ready today, tomorrow you submit. No, we have to send in notice of thesis submission at least 3 months before the submission of thesis. There were cases in the past where students just go to IPS, want to submit thesis, but there is no notice of thesis submission. You know, I know that these are all should be the student's responsibility, but we as supervisor, we also need to be part of this process and basically advising the students when to do or when to submit the notice of thesis submission. So we know when the notice has been submitted, the student have at least 3 months or 4 months to prepare and to finalize the thesis before it can go and be submitted for examination. It's only after the notice of thesis submission is submitted that the supervisor can then nominate examiners. Of course, the nomination of examiners is subject to procedures of each PTJ. So different PTJs have different ways of nominating examiners. For example, in my section, the supervisors would nominate the examiners, and the name of the examiners would then go to the section meeting. The section will then decide would these examiners be appropriate for this particular candidate. The section would then approve the listing based on the discussion that they have. Then it will go to the school. School board would have to endorse the names. Then only it will be submitted to IPS for Viva Voce. So it's a long process. That is why we need at least 3 months for the notice before we want to send or before we want to submit the thesis. This is,
Dato,
yes, Dr. Lee?
sorry to interrupt. Okay, so let's say let's say I'm a student. 3 months before submission, so I submit the notice. So let's say 1st January. So 1, 2, 3 after March, April, I can submit my thesis, right?
Mm-hmm.
Suppose if something happened, I tak jadi, I couldn't submit my thesis. So how long the notice will be valid? Meaning that, let's say, I suppose plan to submit in April, but then something happened. Until end of the year also, I couldn't submit my thesis. So will the notice still valid?
Thank you, Dr. Lee. Yes, the notice is valid. I think there is a period of time. I cannot remember on top of my head what was the duration of time. If anybody else knows the duration of the validation, the validity period of the notice of thesis submission, please kindly share your opinion. But yes, Dr. Lee, the notice of thesis submission valids for a certain period of time. So let's say on the 4th month, you are unable to submit, you can still use the remaining months to wait for the submission. And I know I have this case of my own student. I think after 6 months, or she has reached that final limit, and I think she was not able to submit because she has surpassed that notice validity period, and she just resubmit another notice of thesis submission to make it valid. So then she would have to wait for another 3 months.
Yeah, my understanding also, maybe the notice valid for 6 months, like, I submit in January. By June, end of June, I should submit my thesis. If no, also like Dr. Haidodo say, we have to resubmit, then have to wait another 3 months, then only we can submit.
Yeah.
So I just want to confirm, actually, sorry, the question just.
Yeah, don't worry, Dr. Lee.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, that's why we as supervisor, we have to check lah, and then see whether the student is ready or not. But again, Sometimes things are out of our control. We think that the student is ready to submit within 3 or 4 months, but sometimes you never know, things happen and the student was not able to submit within the prescribed period. So it's not a rule that is cast in stone. It's very flexible. If you are unable to submit within the validity period of the notice, you can also can always extend it. I think I saw someone raise his hand just now, but I cannot remember whom. Any other question? No? Okay. All right. So this is for thesis submission. There is another one, which is notice of thesis and publication submission. So remember, we have two types of PhD assessment, right? One is by thesis, another one is by thesis and publication. So if let's say you as a supervisor feel that your student has very good publication content, right? They have very good publication Q1 journals and everything is within the area of research and all that. You want to go through this track. So the notice of submission is earlier. It is 6 months before submission of thesis and publication. So if it's just thesis, it's 3 months. If it's thesis and publication, it is 6 months. And for this particular submission, there are 2 stages. Number 1 is stage 1 is intention of submission. So intention of submission is the submission include critical review. So if you, as a supervisor, you have to guide the candidate on how to prepare this critical review. It's not long. It's only a few 100 or 1,000 words, I cannot remember. But this critical review will basically summarize the publication, the work, and the impact of the publication and how it is related to the whole thesis. And then 3 referee journals, as well as statement about joint authorship. Because this is very important, because one of the things that are very confusing about this particular track is the examiners want to see that the student has a big role in the publication. That is why there need to be a statement about joint authorship. So this is what supervisors need to prepare if supervisors intend to follow this particular track. And then this intention of submission will be submitted to PTJ's board, and then PTJ would then set up a special evaluation committee. So you have the dean, you have representatives from the school. You must also have representative or professors from outside the school to basically evaluate the submission. And once the special evaluation committee has endorsed the submission, the school would then submit it to MPSU for endorsement and recommendation. So only after stage 1 that you will go to stage 2 for examination. So for stage 2, what will be submitted would be thesis. You still have to prepare a thesis, but it's not as detailed as what would be the submission of thesis alone. You go through IPS website and they have a detailed guideline about the contents of the thesis. And then the publication, the 3 referee journals, as well as statement about joint authorship. Yes, I saw someone raise their hand, Dr. Nawal.
Assalamualaikum Doktor.
Waalaikumsalam.
Nak tanya berkenaan dengan joint authorship ni, it means that dia memang kena ada something yang MOU ke? What does it mean? Like it's just if it like a different university ke? Because I don't understand what does joint authorship mean.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Nawal.
Thank you.
Usually the journals paper tu kan ada nama students. There will always be the student's name, supervisor's name, and perhaps other people's name in the paper. So the candidate would then have to explain how these different people contributed to the journal publication and what is the role of the student as the main author and what is the significance of the student's contribution towards the paper.
So does it mean that the joint authorship is means the people who contribute to the publication, which is not the supervisor, but like industry, something like that. Macam tu ke?
Yes. Yeah, siapa-siapa saja, anybody whose name are in that particular paper.
Okay. So is there any letter that they should produce, or it's just
Yeah, that,
the publisher or requirement?
no, this one is for the evaluation to be evaluated for the special evaluation committee, because the special evaluation committee wants to make sure that although there are many people in the paper, but the candidate or the student makes a big contribution to the paper, because this is evaluation based on thesis and publication. So the student and the supervisor must be able to clearly explain how the different authors contributed to the publication and what is the main role of the candidate for that particular publication. This is the difficult part. Because we know that this, for example, let's just say the paper is written only by the student and the supervisor. Still, the committee would need to know to what extent is the contribution of the supervisor and to what extent is the contribution of the candidate. And to justify that this candidate merits this particular track of thesis and publication. Okay ke, Dr. Nawal?
Okay. Thank you, Dr.
You're welcome. So, ladies and gentlemen, that wraps up our topic for today. So the three main topics are basically the three main policies that we need to know with regard to postgraduate supervision. One is we as supervisor ourselves. Number two is the candidate itself, when they want to join the postgraduate programs. And then third is when the candidate is already in the program, going through all the process and they want to submit their work and graduate as a postgraduate student from USM. Yes, the students themselves need to know what they need to do. But again, we as supervisors, we need to also tell them what are the do's and the don'ts and what are the things that they need to do with regard to their journey as a postgraduate student. So this is at least the three things that is expected from us as supervisors. And we must also be alert with all the changes that are done at the university level, because sometimes things change, the policy changes. So we must always be alert about what are the latest submission process, what is the latest criteria. So I think our best number one source of information would be IPS. I found the website to be very full of information. So please always ask yourself, please ask your students to go through IPS website, and we can also browse through IPS website for more information. As what I mentioned to all of you just now, the module is done in such a way that 1 hour is for lecture and another hour is for activity. So we are done with the lecture and now we will go to activity. So this is our activity. It's just very simple. Our activity is for you because it's about policy, guidelines, rules, and regulations. So what we want all of you to do is to go and get information on the various policy, guidelines, rules, and regulations on postgraduate supervision and create your own notes. You can do this either individually or grouping. You can look at the names of the participants in today's webinar. If you find your friends, you can work with them and then submit your assignment or submit your activities as a group. But if you submit your activities in a group, please mention your group names, group members names in the assignment. And submission is through Mahara e-portfolio. I will show you in a while how to access Mahara e-portfolio. So some of the policies, guidelines, rules, and regulations that you can consider would be number one, USM Code of Good Practice for Postgraduate Studies, USM Policy on Plagiarism, Candidature Matters of Postgraduate Studies, as well as Viva Voce examination procedures. These are just some examples of the policies that are related to postgraduate supervision. So you can choose one policy and then read it and just provide a short summary about what the policy is all about. So as what I've mentioned, we are going to use e-portfolio at USM. In a while, I will show you the e-portfolio. So if all of you can log in to https eportfolio.usm.my, and then you search group. So the group is PSS at USM. So once you have searched, you just click join. So once you have joined the group, you are good to go. I know some of you have attended last week's lecture with Prof. Takziah, and you have already submitted your reflection in the forum. So it's the same group. So if you have done that, then this would be just a continuity. If this is your first time joining, then you would need to join the group PSS at USM. So it's good that you join the group because moving forward, most of the activities will be submitted through our e-portfolio at USM. So in the e-portfolio, there is group portfolios of Unit 2. So in this group portfolios Unit 2, you have all the information about today's lecture, basically today's information, sharing of information, as well as the slide, the PPT slide that you can download. And then there will also be forums, activity for Unit 2 today, and this is where you submit your responses for today's activity. So give me a second. What I will do is I will share with you now e-portfolio Mahara, and then we'll guide you all from there. Just give me a second. So we have this group PSS at USM, and I can see that a lot of you are already in the group. So you just go to the groups. You can see here, why this is here. This is Unit 2. So you can see this is today's talk on the overview of the recruitment and policy of postgraduate supervision. And you have the PPT that you can download here. So you can just press here and download the activity, the PowerPoint presentation if you want to. So so if you go back to groups, you go to forums. You can see here, this was last week's activity on reflection. So if you, I'm sure most of you have attended last week's Prof. Takziah's lecture. It was here. You have submitted at least 140 have already submitted their assignment. So here is the activity for Unit 2. So you just click here. If you forget what is it that you need to do, then you just see, I've already put here, seek information on policy guidelines, create your own notes in Mahara ePortfolio. So already one, thank you so much, Dr. Nawal. Already submitted their assignment, basically for the activity. So you can just add new topic for you to submit your work. So if you're doing this in group, please make sure that when you click new topic, you will also include the names of your group members. If you want to do individually, it's also fine. So there's no restriction on whether it should always be individual or basically group work.
Dr. Sadatul, saya baru buat join e-portfolio. Can you ulang balik how to go to this page?
Okay, so kejap banyak sangat ke atas ni sekejap. Just kecilkan sikit. Okay. Alright. So this is what you do is you try to search for groups. So this is, wait, give me a second. I'm just going to go to my dashboard. So this is, once you go here, usually this is where you will get the page kan? Huh? This is your page, betul?
Ya, betul betul.
Okay, so now you need to search for group. Mana search for group? So you go here, yang 3 dot tepi ni. So groups, nampak tak? People, groups, discussion topics. So you click on groups. Okay, then search PSS at USM. And then you search. You will find that group and you click join. Because I have already joined, so I cannot click join. So you go here again, these 3 lines here, go to groups, search for groups, and then click join. Boleh ke?
Trying. Okay. PSS kan?
Boleh?
PSS kan?
Yes, PSS. PSS at USM.
PSS kan?
Yes, once you have joined, then you are a member of the group and you just click the group. So then you will get this page about PSS at USM.
Okay.
Everyone good? Okay. So kalau siapa yang tak boleh tu, you go back to your dashboard, right? This is your dashboard. And then you click the 3 lines on the right next to your face. Before that, before you go search, and then you go here, search people. So, and then put here PSS at USM. Search groups, search all my groups, search. So you put here, search all groups.
Okay.
So if you pull down the plus button, after the name, ada plus button, apa ni, arrow ni. So go to all groups, or groups I'm not in, groups I can join. So just easy is just go all groups and search. And then you will find PSS.
Okay, okay, dapat.
How to find the group? I'm not getting the groups.
Okay, you go to, are you now in this page where you have these engaged groups? You see this one?
I'm already in the e-portfolio USM, and with my login ID I already opened.
Okay, then you go to the 3 lines next to your face. You see engage. Engage, you will see people, groups, discussion topics.
Engage.
So did you
No
get
group
that?
open now. Already I got the groups, but I'm not finding this PSS USM.
Okay, you type PSS at USM and put all groups. And then search.
In the search. In the
Yes,
search.
and then press search.
Group I'm in all groups.
Yes, put all groups.
Okay, then I click on PSS USM.
Yeah, and then click there and join. Yes.
Join this group. Okay, now I'm done.
Excellent. Okay, so once you in the group, just go to forums, okay? And forum, you can see number 1 is task reflection for last week, and number 2 is activity for unit 2. So you just click on activity for unit 2, and then add new topic, and you will have your submission ready.
New topic.
Yes, Click new topic and then just write the notes here. If you want to prepare it elsewhere, you want to add a file, it's up to you how you want to prepare it. It doesn't matter. Okay. Give me a second. I think some in the messages. Okay, when is the due date for this task? By right, Dr. Ridwan, because the unit is 2 units. The unit is 2 hours, sorry, 2 unit pula. The unit is 2 hours. So 1 hour is the lecture and 1 hour is activity. So by right 11:30 kena submit lah. But it's okay, you know, I think CDAE is not very strict on this. 1 minggu boleh kot. CDAE, ada ke wakil CDAE? Bila 1 minggu untuk mereka siapkan boleh ke, Prof. Azri? Kan? Okey lah tu, tak ada komen tu kiranya okey lah. Okay, so I think 1 week is okay lah. Kan? I think that's all from me. Maybe the secretariat wants to give the attendance link. Okay, yes, the attendance link ada kat situ, link kehadiran. So please click on the link kehadiran, making sure that you know your attendance is recorded. Remember, you need to complete 14 hours, so please make sure that you click the attendance.
Sorry, doctor, how can we click the attendance?
It's in the chat. You go to chat. There is a link there. Okay, so here they have also given it. You can also scan the QR code.
Doktor, Assalamualaikum.
Waalaikumsalam.
Doktor, saya rasa ada beberapa soalan yang perlu dijawab lah doktor dalam chat box. Banyak soalan daripada peserta.
Saya tak nampak pula, kejap. Oh, ada kat atas.
Dia dah ke atas sana.
I tak check kat atas. Okay, Sat. Okay, Sat. Besarkan sikit. Okay. Okay. Dr. Chai Ming Hock tanya, is mixed mode students considered as postgraduate students for the definition to exempt from this course? I think this one was answered just now by Dr. Diana as well as Prof. Hazri. So it's also considered by research, postgraduate students by research mode. So those on FSRS can be a main supervisor as long as if let's say they are paid, then they can be main supervisor. If they are not paid, if they are not on any paid employment scheme, then they cannot be main supervisor. The most they can be is basically just co-supervisor. Kalau dia tidak dibayar, it's just co-supervisor. Kalau dibayar, then yes, can be main supervisor. Again, from Dr. Chai Ming Hock, samalah just now the issue of master students include mixed mode or not. Dr. Nurul, successfully supervised, does it mean students successfully graduated? Okay, Dr. Nurul, I also have that confusion myself, because when I read MQA punya rules, it just say kalau dalam bahasa Melayu, dia ialah menjadi berjaya menjadi penyelia, something like that. Tapi to our understanding is ialah it should be have already the students must be graduated lah, kan? There's an echo lah. Maybe someone did not.
Prof, if we just click on the link, it will mark our attendance automatically, or do we need to do anything else?
I think when you scan this using your passport USM apps, it will be automatically recorded. So you don't need to do anything else.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah.
Actually, to fill in the e-survey after you click.
There's also e-survey. Okay. Thank you so much, Dr. Zainab.
But however, the e-survey is not working just now. The link is locked, so the admin have to open the link first.
Secretariat, tolong buka link, katanya tutup. Okay, let me go through another question. B, is it mean co-supervisor? Which B? Let me just see. PhD. Okay. So B, I would presume it is criteria for supervisor, PhD as main supervisor. Yes, it is main supervisor. It is it does not actually say directly, but I presume it is for PhD telah menyelia pelajar in bahasa it says telah menyelia pelajar pada peringkat sarjana atau kedoktoran dengan jayanya, meaning that it translated as has supervised student at the master's or doctoral level successfully. So because this is PhD, I presume, I think, you know, this would be co-supervisor. But let me get back to you, and then, you know, if any, I will put that comment in e-portfolio. I will put a note on this, and I will reconfirm with all of you, and I will put a note in the e-portfolio so that you can look at it.
Datul, I also asked one question in my chat box.
Okay, thank you. I'm going through
Sorry
the
ya,
question.
kehadiran still lock lah.
Yeah,
Please
it's a
enable the lock lah.
yeah. Secretariat, please.
Secretariat, boleh ke tolong kehadiran tu still lock katanya? The e-survey.
Tunggu sat ya sebab kita buka e-survey ni sebelum 11.30. So kami tengah buka e-survey tu ya.
Okay,
Tunggu.
alright. That 2B for supervisor with masters only, must B has supervised a research mode masters or any masters. 2B. 2B is Dr. Irfan still here? Dr. Irfan, can you clarify the question please? What does it mean 2B? Which 2B?
Doktor, betul lah seperti yang dijawab tadi iaitu research mode.
Okay,
Research
okay.
mode. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Dr. Zul. Okay, tak payah komen lah Dr. Zul ya. Okay. Dr. Shazana, I'm not eligible to be the main supervisor although I have a PhD and 3 years of teaching. I've also graduated and am a bit confused. Can you enlighten me on this? I'm not eligible to be the main supervisor for so by right, Dr. Shazana, you can, because the criteria is basically if you want to be a main supervisor for masters, you must at least have a doctoral degree, and because you have a doctoral degree, then you qualify to become a supervisor. You know, but maybe your school has a different criteria, additional criteria. I'm not sure. You have to check back with your school lah. But the requirement by MQA states that if you want to become main supervisor at the master's level, by having a doctoral degree, you are eligible. And for PhD, doctoral degree and 2 years of teaching and experience, 2 years of teaching and research experience. So by right, you are qualified to supervise masters and PhD student. Dr. Zainab, yes, we take note of your comments, and then this one would need to be revert back to the higher ups lah, yeah, not me, sorry. Dr. Danish, I have teaching experience more than 8 years, but so far not any master or PhD. I graduated as main supervisor, but as supervisor, I graduated 1 master. Am I eligible to take PhD as main supervisor? Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Danish. This is the same question as we had earlier, because it was not clearly specified whether the criteria of graduating a student to, is it as co-supervisor or as main supervisor. As I mentioned to you just now, I will clarify this matter, and then I will include the answer in the e-portfolio, and then you can refer back to the e-portfolio. Yeah. Dr. Azam, right now, main problem foreign student weak in communication. Hopefully, interview should be conducted. Yeah, it is up to the individual programs whether to do interview or not. So you can discuss it back at your school level and check whether you want to have interviews for your admission process. It can be done as long as your school board is agreeable to that particular condition. Dr. Zarul, what if the candidate is from a totally different field, example, degree management, pursuing MSc? Again, Dr. Zarul, this one is, I pass it back to you and your school. What is the criteria of selection for postgraduate students? Sometimes, like for example, in in our program for PhD in economics, we only take students with background in economics. Those with no backgrounds in economics, we will definitely reject the student no matter how good the student is. But of course, there are certain other criteria that can be taken into consideration. The experience, perhaps the candidate has been in that particular area or field of study that can be considered as admission. So you have to check that with the school.
Vegetarian dah increase jadi nampak
Saya tak tahu, yang tu kena confirm dengan Dr. Izzatul.
Okay,
Sebab saya bukan bahagian tu, jadi I really don't know.
because why?
Okay, sorry for the interruption. Dr. Nora Samahani, our section, we conduct interview for foreign student. The result on paper is quite high, but during the interview, even a simple question, the candidate did not understand it. Agree. This is what Prof. Hazri mentioned just now. We also have to control our quality lah. It's not only about numbers, but it also about making sure that we have good quality students for our postgraduate programs, kan? So if you feel that there is a strong justification to reject the student, give in the justification. If you think that the student has the background but lacking in English, put that as a condition for that the students must pass English exam or English qualification at USM prior to admission to the postgraduate program. That is also applicable. Yes, Dr. Irfan kata Pusat Pengajian Sains Perubatan always interview and discuss proposal and calon mesti lulus jabatan untuk diperaku oleh TD and Dekan. This is a good practice. So maybe everyone else may want to also consider that. Is there a list of English courses offered to postgraduate foreign students by our language center? I'm so sorry, Dr. Ng, I'm not able to answer this question. At the moment, perhaps, you may want to refer to the language center. If I can get information on this, I will put it in the e-portfolio. Dr. Firzan, calon perlu dinilai berdasarkan kualiti kerja, minat, penilaian, kemahiran and all these things. Agree. So this is something that we need to ponder upon lah. Because usually when we accept students, we only look at the paper qualification and we rarely look at the other parts, kan? Especially their interests, their interpersonal skills and all their knowledge and all that. So interview, I would say, would be a good alternative or a good effort if the school is up to it. By all means, you can do that. Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Firzan, for a very thorough comments. Something that maybe IPS wants to take up.
Dr. Sadatul,
Yeah.
if I can add many examples in overseas, in UK, in Australia as well, some other university, they practice beyond the interview as well in the recruitment process. Even though the student have fulfilled all the requirements in terms of their academic qualification, it's not necessary that the student can easy to be recruited for the enrollment. So there's many stages of assessment that the candidate need to go through before they are being able to be accepted to be a student for the PhD program. So it depends to the school, I think. You can bring all the good practice or good idea to your school board and then come up with your, internal requirement. IPS or university will just provide a very standard requirement, but the school have their privilege to come up with their own requirement and or condition or regulation for the purpose. Okay, that's all.
Yeah, betul. Thank you so much, Prof. Hazri. Banyaknya soalan. Okay, let's go through again. Dr. Irfan, student as first author, corresponding author is open usually. We at PPSP encourage but not compulsory the supervisor as correspondence. Correct. So the student has to be first author, as I mentioned just now. The supervisor can be corresponding author or the student can also be corresponding author. It depends on how and what is the discussion and the amount of work and contribution to the paper. So when it's not necessarily that supervisor has to be corresponding author. As much as we want to the KPI, we must also uphold our integrity for publication. If the student passed to us in her last semester due to main supervisor resignation and the student already published a paper with old supervisor, can her publication be counted for her graduation? This one, I would say why not, kan? Because, it was a paper already done. But anyway, let me confirm with you again, Dr. Amira. And for the questions that I'm not able to answer now, I will try to get the answers from respected person and I will upload it in the Unit 2 page in the group, in the e-portfolio. Is there a postgraduate guidebook explaining all of this? Yeah, ada, Dr. Zarul. Everything you can go and look for them in IPS website. Yes, the slide is available in e-portfolio Mahara. You can download it, yeah? Okay, semua pasal link. Okay, this is a reminder from CDAE. Please be reminded that all participants must complete the task for each unit in the e-portfolio Mahara to get the credit hour for the module. So please don't forget to submit your activity in e-Mahara, okay? I think that's it. I scanned the code. What is the definition of as a doctoral degree? Is it a PhD only? PhD as well as doctoral by mixed mode is also considered as doctoral degree. If I have graduated master student under coursework mode, does the course still compulsory to me? Yes, because we, as what Prof. Hasri has mentioned just now, we only consider postgraduate program by research mode. Publication submission. For publication, we need to get an approval before we submit to journal. Regarding notice of thesis and publication, for publication, we need to get an approval before we submit to journal. I don't understand your question, Dr. Aini. You want to elaborate the question? Is Dr. Aini still here? If I understood it, but actually when you talk about publication, the paper is already there. The paper is already ready. You already submitted and the paper has already been published. So what you want to do for this thesis and publication submission is you want to take all the papers that have been published and you want to submit for this particular track, thesis and publication submission. So I don't understand what does it mean by getting an approval. But basically, when you want to submit to journal, you just follow the same requirements of paper publication for journal. Dr. Nur Daniza, sorry, as the question is a bit out of topic. What question? Sorry. There is one English course, okay. For notice of thesis submission, can we submit although the status of student under postponement but already in final stage of writing? No. You can only submit notice of thesis submission if the student is active. Student who is not active cannot submit notice of thesis submission. That's what I know of. Because I know like one of my students will postpone his studies and once he has returned and in active mode, he is an active postgraduate student, then only he can submit the thesis, or basically submit the notice of thesis submission. Okay, I hope I have done justice to...
Doctor?
Yes?
Okay, sorry. Because of the time, I prefer to ask in voice. Good morning, thank you for your presentation. Doctor, what about the international collaboration, like supervision of students in other countries, or being co-supervisor with another students from another universities and countries?
Dr. Mizam, you're talking about lecturers from other universities becoming co-supervisor for your student. Is that it?
Both of us maybe, because me as a lecturer here can be a supervisor of other universities or co-supervisor of or other universities.
Yes, yes, Dr. Mizam, why not? Yeah, you can.
Based on the rules of USM, or it is not depends on the rules here?
So if you want to become a supervisor at other universities, that is subject to the rules and regulations of other universities on your appointment as co-supervisor. But at the same time, I also suggest that you double check with your dean on your appointment as a co-supervisor at other university, as well as double check with the legal office, making sure that you are not breaking any rules and regulations being supervisor of other universities.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I just want to ask, when is the last day to submit the assignment?
We give you 1 week, Dr. Isam. Is that okay? Is that sufficient?
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, so I hope all of you have learned something from today's webinar, and I hope I've also done justice to your time, as well as done justice to the questions that have been posted in chat. There were 2 questions that I have not that I was not able to answer. I will try to get answers for it and then post it in eLearn in ePortfolio ePortfolio Mahara. So with that, thank you so much, everyone. Do take care, stay safe, and all the best in your postgraduate supervision. And inshallah, many of you will be able to graduate from this 14-hour course, as well as graduating a postgraduate student successfully. So thank you.
Thank you, Doctor.
Assalamualaikum. Very good day. Bye.